If you were standing in a shinobi village 400 years ago, a shinobi's day might look nothing like what you imagine. Not an assassin flying through the sky, nor a shadow running across the rooftops. His day was plainer and far more ordinary. Today, using the ninja manuals and village laws that have survived, let us imagine that day from morning to night, hour by hour. We will call our main character Jinpachi. Of course, he is not a real person, but his single day holds the true shape of a shinobi. 2 in the morning. While it is still dark before the day breaks, Jinpachi wakes. A shinobi's morning starts early. But here is the first surprising fact. In truth, being a shinobi was not a full-time job. Most of them were local warriors living in Iga and Koka, low-ranking samurai rooted in their villages, who in daily life were ordinary farmers working the fields. Iga and Koka are hilly lands not far from Kyoto, the old capital. Ringed by steep mountains and hard for any large force to attack, this terrain is said to have raised the special culture later called the shinobi villages. The two sat side by side across a mountain pass, often joined hands, and sent many shinobi out into the world. In their land, there was no powerful lord to rule the village. It was a half-independent, self-governing place, where the villagers talked things over themselves and set their own laws. Their laws stated that if an enemy came from another province, they were to ring the bell, and every man from 17 to 50 was to take up arms and rush to defend. For people with no lord to protect them, knowing the enemy's movements early was a matter of life and death for the village. So they grew skilled at gathering information, quietly and carefully. And as the age of endless war went on, that skill came to be wanted by other houses too, to secretly find out the enemy's inner state. That was the true nature of the shinobi. Yet this free land did not last forever. In time, the greatest and most powerful warlord of the age, Oda Nobunaga, would send his great army into this place. But that is still a little way off. For now, let us follow Jinpachi's day. 4 in the morning. Jinpachi begins to get ready. When you hear a shinobi's clothing, you may picture ways to hide the body, but what they truly valued was not hiding, but disguise. The ninja manuals record 7 disguises, called the 7 ways out. A wandering monk, a priest, a mountain ascetic, a merchant, a street performer, a traveling entertainer, and last of all, the ordinary villager. Look closely, and they all share one thing. Priests and mountain ascetics could pass freely through checkpoints. For merchants and performers, traveling from province to province was simply their work. In other words, they were all people whose presence raised no suspicion. The shinobi disguised themselves as these, and walked openly into enemy land. On this day, the form Jinpachi chose was that of a medicine seller. 6 in the morning. Having finished dressing, Jinpachi begins to check his belongings. The ninja manuals list 6 tools that a shinobi should always carry. A woven hat, a hooked rope for climbing walls, writing tools, medicine, a hand towel, and a bamboo tube to carry fire. Notice this. Among these 6, there is no throwing star. In fact, in the ninja manuals found so far, there is almost no record of a shinobi throwing a star to fight. The throwing star did exist, but it was more a weapon of the samurai. When you think about it, it makes sense. Carry many iron blades, and they are heavy, bulky, and noisy. If you are found, that alone gives away who you are. Even if he did carry some, it was a few at most. They were not for killing the enemy, but a tool to buy a single moment to escape. What the ninja manuals say again and again is that unusual tools make people suspicious. So they carried only things you could find anywhere. 8 in the morning. Having got his tools in order, Jinpachi leaves the village dressed as a medicine seller. He walks along the road towards the castle town he is aiming for. If today were a day with no mission, at this hour he would be in the field, holding a hoe. At noon he would eat a rice ball, and in the afternoon he would care for his tools. Most of a shinobi's day was, in truth, filled with this ordinary farming life. He moved as a ninja. Only on the rare days he took on a mission. The rest of the time, he was an ordinary villager who could well be living right next to you. Now, from here, the real work begins. Perhaps you are picturing it now, sneaking through shadows, a hidden blade, a silent kill. But this is where the truth differs most from what people imagine. In truth, most of a shinobi's work was waiting. Jinpachi places himself, without drawing notice, where the castle can be seen. The corner of a tea house, the shade of a tree. And he simply watches. Who comes and goes through the gate? How many soldiers guard it? How much rice is stored? When the watch changes. The ninja manuals teach a single lesson. Win without fighting. It is an idea borrowed from Sun Tzu, the ancient Chinese master of war. The finest shinobi is one who is noticed by no one, causes nothing to happen, and simply finds out what he needs and returns. Nothing showy takes place at all. A shinobi's true work was not fighting, but gathering information. A little past noon. In a gap in the long watch, Jinpachi takes a small pill from inside his robe. This is a shinobi's meal. In fact, the ninja manuals even record recipes for traveling food. For example, the hunger pill to hold off hunger, and the thirst pill to ease a dry throat. The hunger pill packed grains and honey into a single bite, enough to keep a man going. The thirst pill is made from the flesh of a pickled plum, kneaded with a little rock sugar and a herb called dwarf lily turf. The sourness of the plum draws out saliva and eases the thirst. It is like a throat lozenge in today's terms. Why was such traveling food needed? Because while hidden, you cannot light a fire. If smoke rises from cooking, that alone gives away where you are. So no matter how many days he stayed hidden, he could not get a warm meal. With only these small pills to rely on, he had to get through the whole mission. 6 in the evening. By the time the sun was sinking, Jinpachi had gathered nearly all the information. But the day's mission was not finished yet. There was a rumor that the castle's lord was in secret contact with the enemy. Somewhere inside the castle was a letter that proved it. To slip in, find it, and confirm the truth. That was the real request. Here, let me introduce 2 words that divide a shinobi's skills. They are called Yonin and Innin. The open way and the hidden way. The open method is what Jinpachi has been doing so far. Disguising as a merchant or the like, hiding his identity, and walking openly into enemy land. The hidden method, on the other hand, is slipping through the dark of night and climbing over walls. The so-called ninja-like skill. It may surprise you, but in real missions, the plain open method was used more often than the showy hidden method. But tonight, what Jinpachi is about to attempt is the hidden method. Slipping in was not always done on the darkest night. The manuals say to choose the night when people let their guard down. Drunk, exhausted, or with wind and rain to cover the sound. What the shinobi looked for was not darkness, but a moment when people forgot to watch. On this day, luckily, there was wind. Midnight. The night deepens, and the lights of the castle town go out, one by one. Jinpachi draws near to the castle, hidden in the dark of night. Here is a surprising fact. When you think of a shinobi's night clothing, you may picture that all-black outfit. But that, too, is thought not to be the true shape of a shinobi. The reason is simple. Night is not complete darkness. There is a moon, and there are stars. In that light, if you cover yourself all in black, your outline stands out instead. What was actually used was not black, but dark blue or brown dyed with persimmon tannin. They were colors that blended just right into the dark of night. The all-black ninja is nothing more than an image created by the theater of a later age. What Jinpachi wears, too, is clothing of such a plain color. Blending into the dark as he closes on the castle, the first thing to block Jinpachi's way is the guard dog. The guard dog was one of a shinobi's greatest enemies, and the ninja manuals even record ways to tame a dog beforehand, and ways to quiet it with food. To climb the wall, the hooked rope. The manuals even record how to walk in silence. The drawn step, the sliding step, down to the smallest detail. Jinpachi follows the path he studied by day. The layout of the walls, the lie of the land, the place of every gate. All of it is already in his head. That is exactly why those long hours of watching were needed. The skill of undoing a door's lock without a sound is also recorded in the ninja manuals. And when he finds the letter he is after, Jinpachi does not take it away. If he stole it, its absence would be noticed, and the other side would grow wary. So he copies only the contents, and returns it as if nothing had happened. To be noticed by no one. That was a shinobi's finest work. He goes back the way he came. In truth, the return is harder than the break-in, because the ease that comes with finishing a task can be fatal. If he is found, he can scatter caltrops to slow the chase, or throw blinding powder to lose his pursuers. But what the ninja manuals warn against most strongly is fighting itself. The moment he draws his sword, the mission is already half a failure. Here lies the decisive difference from the samurai. The samurai held it a virtue to die for honor and a shame to retreat. But what was asked of the shinobi was the opposite: to live, return, and bring back what he had learned. Only when that was done was the mission complete. The ninja manuals leave behind these words: no sound, no scent, no fame for wisdom, no fame for courage. Noticed by no one, boasting of no achievement, leaving no name behind. That was the proof of a fine shinobi. 4 a.m. Jinpachi arrives back at the village. Exactly the same hour as the day before. The roosters have not yet crowed. Within a few days he will go to the one who hired him and report what he has learned. Once that is done, he goes back to being a plain farmer. When day breaks, he holds a hoe, shows his face at the village gathering, and looks after the children, as if nothing had happened the night before. Following Jinpachi's day like this, the shinobi looks quite different from what we have imagined. They did not fly through the sky, nor walk on water, nor were they assassins trading throwing stars in battle. Their true selves were ordinary people who worked the soil. And the heart of their work was not to fight, but to watch, to remember, and to return alive. Years later, that free village met its end. In the Tensho-era, Oda Nobunaga's son led his troops against it, and was driven back. His pride wounded, Nobunaga sent in a great army himself. This is what history calls the Tensho-Iga War. But before such an overwhelming force, the village could not stand. It was burned to the ground, and many shinobi lost their lives. Those who survived scattered to the provinces. Ironically, the shinobi who scattered in this way would later be taken into service in the age of the Tokugawa, and pass their name down to later ages. Almost nothing survives that tells us how the shinobi truly lived day to day. Perhaps that is only fitting. Leaving no trace was, after all, their work. But the fragments that remain still speak to us quietly. That the real shinobi was far more ordinary than the legend, and far more quietly cunning. Thanks for watching. On this channel, I'll keep sharing the real face of Japan. Its history, its culture, and things that might surprise you. If you find anything in this video that differs from what you know, or spot a mistake, please let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below too. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Your knowledge makes this place more interesting. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and subscribe. Thanks again, and see you next time.